Hi, my name is Rudradtiya Khare and I am the convener of the Alternative Dispute Resolution Cell of the National Law Institute University. We take pride in being the oldest alternative dispute resolution cell in the country. And furthermore, flagship tournament, which is the NLIU.inadr International Law School Mediation Tournament, happens to be the largest and the oldest mediation tournament in the country. The ADRC has been organizing various events throughout the year in the National Law Institute University, which range from international commercial arbitration seminars to pool selections to providing training to our students who go abroad participating in these tournaments. Now, one of the new initiatives we're trying to incorporate this year is to introduce these tutorials, which shall be available on our YouTube channel and will be accessible to anyone who is interested in learning about mediation. To keep it systematic, we have tried to divide the tutorials into 5 parts. The first part will be dealing with the opening statement of the client and the counsel. The second part will deal with the mediator's opening statement. The third part will deal with the conference session, and the fourth with the caucus, and the last one with the closing statements. Now, these tutorial videos are aimed at introducing any law student or any student otherwise to the nitty-gritties and the intricacies of a mediation session. And it is for furthering mediation as a dispute resolution process throughout the law students. We have taken up this initiative to further mediation as an option of alternative dispute resolution among various law students. I hope you like our initiative and it helps you learn more about mediation. So the first tutorial shall be dealing with the role of the client and the counsel, and to be more specific, the opening statement of the client and counsel. Now, I would like to specify at the very onset that strictly speaking from the point of view of the competitions, the opening statement of the client and the counsel carry a lot of marks. So it will be very beneficial for anyone in the law school starting mediation to have a very strong and affirmative opening statement. Now, this tutorial, I have divided it into 4 parts for the sake of convenience. Firstly, I'll be talking about the role division between the client and the counsel. The second bit, I'll be speaking strictly about the counsel's opening statement. The third bit will deal with the client's opening statement. And the fourth bit will deal with the general demeanor of the client and the counsel as part of the participants. Now, starting with the first leg, which is generally the division of responsibilities between the client and the counsel. Now the key rule is that the counsel deals with all the technicalities of the problems, and whereas the client deals with the factual matrix of the problem. Now this rule has to be adhered to throughout the mediation session because the judges might be looking for, and since it is assumed that the clients do not know a lot of legal technicalities or probably will not be knowing a lot of numbers, it should come from the counsel instead of the client. Now the second thing is that you should not interrupt each other. Now, mediation sessions generally have these extra marks for the chemistry between the client and the counsel, which can be seen in the way they communicate. So if, let's say for example, I'm the counsel and I keep on interrupting and intruding my client, it shows really bad on my part because firstly, mediation is a client-driven process rather than a counsel-driven process, and secondly, our team doesn't have coordination. So whenever you feel that your partner is going off track, the best way out of it is to seek a minute out of the mediation session, which can be easily done by saying, Mr. Mediator, at this point of time, I would like to consult with my client. And whenever you consult with the client, it shouldn't be in whispers. You need to speak it aloud. And you just need to point out to your partner that this is probably somewhere that you're going wrong. Now, having said that, I would like to go into the communication between the client and the counsel. So this communication has to be very, very, very subtle. It cannot be very flashy. The other party should not come to know of the communication and neither should the judges. Therefore, it is preferable that there should be some sort of hand gestures or probably a simple plain sheet in the middle of the two participants saying start, stop, take over, halt, or probably a new proposal. So this is a good technique for both the client and the counsel to communicate without speaking out loud. And I think having pointed this out, this is the division of responsibilities between the client and the counsel. So again, I would just like to highlight the golden rule of division of responsibility. The counsel deals with the technicalities, whereas the client with the facts. And I think with this we're done with the division of responsibilities, and we shall move on with the council's opening statement. Now let us begin with part of a tutorial, which is dealing with the council's opening statement. Now in a mediation session, a counsel introduces his or her client. Now for the introduction of the client, you need to tell his or her name and also what he or she does and why is he or she here in the mediation on the mediation table. Now, the second part in the opening statement, which is a very essential part, would be to point out what the council's role is during the whole mediation session. Now, the role covers parts like the council has to point out that he shall be dealing with the technicalities, that is the law involved in the problem, and probably if any calculations or any numbers pop up during the session. The second thing and the most essential part that he has to point out is that the counsel is present in the mediation session merely in an advisory capacity, and the power to take decisions rests with his or her client, and his or her client has full authority to settle in the mediation session. These are the two important things that a counsel must point out during his opening statement. Also, a very important pointer can be that law should not be used in the mediation session. This is a general rule which has been pointed over and over again by different mediators and time and again. But at the same time, if the law has been pointed out in the problem in the general information itself, such law can be used to strengthen your stand, but not beyond. There is a very thin line difference between overusing law, and therefore it should be used but very strictly and in a prohibitive fashion. Now, once such opening statement is done, you need to shift the focus towards your client. And how you do it is by pointing out to the general facts of the problem and not getting into the intricate details of the problem. You can always go on to your client and say that I think it is my client who is in the best position right now to explain what he or she is going through and what are the ground realities in the problem. And this is how you shift the focus towards your client, and then let your client take over and let him or her explain the problem at length. Now, starting with the third part of our tutorial, which is the client's opening statement. Now, as I have already mentioned earlier, that the client deals with the factual matrix of the problem, the opening statement of the client shall be a summary of the whole problem, a summary presented in a manner which points out to the issues that the client has, the problems that he has been facing, and lastly, what solutions or what position does he look to be at after the end of this session. Now, it is very important for the client to play the facts according to how he wants the situation to be and to point out to the strengths of his problem in the opening statement. Now, as we know that the client is unaware of any law, this is the general presumption that is followed. Therefore, what he shall be speaking shall be out of a general rationale and out of the general logic, because this in general life would be right or this in general life would be wrong without pointing out to any law. And therefore it is very important for the client to play the role assigned to him in the problem. Now, when we talk about role playing, there is a very thin line difference between enacting a role and between, let's say, over enacting a role. Now, a client wherein he is expected to be expressing the emotions that are undergoing the whole problem, he should prohibit from enacting the emotions too much or to an extent that dissuades the whole process or takes the focus out of the process, out of the mediation session, which is the flexibility and arriving at a mutual consensus out of the whole session. And apart from that, the second most important thing that the client's opening statement must contain is to set the tone of the whole mediation session. Now, it has been generally agreed that the mediation is a flexible process and it is successful only when both the parties are flexible. But we do understand that there are certain facts and certain issues with respect to which both the parties have to take a positional stand. And this is something a client is supposed to point out at the very onset in his opening statement that, sir, while we agree that we might be flexible enough to let go of thing A, but the subject B is something that we are not willing to compromise on at all. Now, these are the things that set the tone of the mediation session and will also give a cue to the other party as to make proposals according to what position you have already taken in your opening statement. Now, after this is being done, the client should pass the focus to the counsel again, who shall thereon set the agendas and the issues that need to be discussed in the mediation session. Now, let us start with the last part of this tutorial, which is the general demeanor that a client and counsel are expected to have during the whole session and at least in the opening statements. Now, I'll just point out the important things in short. First, sit straight, look interested, uh, whenever the focus shifts to your fellow participant, keep interest, just be interested in the round and keep nodding so that the clients, the other party and the mediators understand that you are listening and you are in the process. And also one of the pointers is, and this is the most effective pointer I can give to you right now, that the counsel must take notes during the session. What this shows is that the counsel is understanding what the other party is proposing and he's in the loop, he's understanding and listening to whatever is being said. Now, apart from this, the last pointer which I would have to give is that dress properly, dress according to the occasion. Now, let's say the counsel shall always be in full formals, though he may be later asked in the mediation session by the mediator to take off his tie or just feel comfortable, but he should be in full formals, whereas the client should be dressed according to the role he's playing. So let's say if he's a farmer, he's not required to wear a suit, but at the same time, if he's playing a business tycoon, he's required to be in his formals. That is the general demeanor or the general clothing that such a person would wear in his general life. And I think with this, we're done with the opening statement of the client and counsel, and I hope it helps. Thank you.